Hi, welcome back to my channel. Just to brief, this video is going to be about basically the art of not trying, and like this thing called taoism, and it's literally like something that I've thought about because I've noticed that my channel is just very like it's got all these ideas in it, but it's not really putting across the way I want to. Sometimes it can be a bit like schooly, understandably, as I've always been to school, but I'm very much about living life. I'm not always about doing everything in that format. So as much as it's hard to like film anywhere not in this position because this is the best lighting for videos like this, I do want to sort of make the vibe of my videos a bit like I want you to I want to bring this up more. So basically, it does kind of relate to sort of just, it's about putting nature into understanding how like nature is like got its own course, and how like sometimes when people try and fix nature or like alter nature a little bit, it can be like counterproductive, and you can basically add more stress, and humans like naturally create this level of like trying to understand things from like their own level. So sometimes like it's just difficult to like actually understand, like sometimes you have to just let stuff be. I think it's just about talking about like, obviously my conclusion to this, which I'll just like spoiler alert at the beginning, I am of the mindset that like everything happens for a reason. For me, obviously everyone has different levels. I'm sure most people have come to peace with the fact that like, you know, everything's going to be alright in the end. I'm not saying like even this video obviously is not going to be like necessary for life, something you want to watch, great, but it's like everything will turn out alright in the end, given the world doesn't end. But it's like, I'm not saying the world will end, definitely won't end. I'm not trying to put some sort of weird prophecy out there, not at all. So let's get into it. But it's about this idea of taoism, which is the art of not trying, and basically how like people talk about alignment and being in alignment to things, but like you can't. So also when people actually do think about these things that they like are doing, which kind of are counterproductive, it can be things like when you have like a fear of loneliness, you might like overcompensate to like, for example, with social media, people might overcompensate by using that a lot to not be lonely, but you can't have contentment, you can't be lonely and not lonely. Those things both have to exist, being lonely and being not lonely, because we all have a contrast. Those things will inevitably both exist, and you can't have one without the other, and you can't have more of one without the other one. So it will even out in the end. So if you do feel less lonely, you will have, if you do feel really, really not lonely, you will feel lonely to counter it out anyway, and that's inevitable, if that makes sense. I'm not saying you have to think about these things to a T all the time, because that would be very confusing, and as someone that like does like to think logically, like that is quite a big thought, but yeah, you can't have the latter without the former. Obviously with social media there's a lot more involved than that, of like, you know, people trying to, I watched this hippie guy who was talking about how he was called a hippie, but he does have a good point that like obviously sometimes in social media like they do kind of push like these addictive things at us, where the world sometimes even if people don't mean to like be giving off a bad image, like from like for example, it could come from a good place. Just to tangent a tiny bit, something could come from a place of like marketing a nice shop which has good stock in it, but then if you're bombarded with that all the time, it can give you this covetous mindset of like, I need loads of clothes, which is like how the internet works. But I think it's just about like leveling up to that like world we live in at the moment, honestly, and it's not easy, to be fair. Everyone's on a process, because it says in the Bible like all evil works together for good, which is actually my next thing that I was supposed to say. So yeah, sorry, still reading notes. So basically, it's even like on YouTube, like this is why I want to make it more of like a level, like vibe, because sometimes I feel like it's like me teaching, which is like not really the vibe I want to go for. And this is why I've noticed how teachers actually do try sometimes when they do get on your level. Like most, they're probably taught to do that. I've never done a teaching qualification, so I don't know, but I think I don't want it to be like this place where I'm like being all righteous and like saying like I have all the keys to life, like blah blah blah, and giving myself some sort of like moral high ground, because it creates division and tension between people. And you can't control other people, and you can't control, like, I'm not saying I want to control other people in the world, but you can't control that anyway. You can't control how someone else perceives you, and I feel like trying to be righteous and have a moral high ground is just not going to be healthy or helpful. I know like some people that struggle with narcissism like might do that naturally, and I'm probably in that category to be fair, but I don't want it to be like that. Like, I think it's just sometimes about recognising your own, you know, behaviour like that. Like, because I was like, oh well, should I just cancel my social media? And I'm like, no, I do think I have like good things to talk about, but like it needs to be, it can be, you know, delivered in a certain way. So apparently this guy was saying how on social media as well, it's easier to be annoying to get like likes and stuff and like views than it is to be like healthy. And also what was interesting with this guy, I'll just say really quickly because it was interesting, how he was saying how social media thrives off negative interactions rather than positive ones. But saying that, I don't think that's necessarily always a bad thing, because society has in the past been so turned off by the negative aspects of life. I think because we are connecting on both positive and negative aspects, that's actually healthy, because of that idea of you can't have one without the other. Just saying, there's obviously pros and cons. He wasn't a hater of social media, he said some of it's good. So back to this. So basically, yeah, these, which is interesting, this thing in this taoism thing, they said that the world honours, and this is just a rule of thumb, the world honours eminence, long life and a good name and other things. So for example, eminence as in like, I think that means imminence, not eminence, imminence. So like instant gratification can be on a sin's level, greed, long life, imminence, yeah, greed. Long life can be like, you know, a long life and a good name, covetousness. If you don't know what covetousness, it means wanting something, wanting to possess something. So stay with me if you can, but it's like humans would like blame, these are the things that the world, sorry, I'm so confused, I've confused myself, let's all have a brain rest. Oh yeah, so to preface the next bit, humans, I noticed, these are like observations that I've made as well, which is like humans blame the world naturally to like release stress, and I don't think this is a bad thing, because it helps people like release something like bad energy and blame something where you're not really causing much of an effect in a bad way. And like that's okay, because like the world's always going to change and have like things that annoy you. Like we're all supposed to like release like negative or positive, excess positive, just energy basically, release energy for doing stuff. If you blame something like the world and the world's processes for that, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I'm not trying to play God here or trying to understand his ways, because he's completely like, you know, another entity, works beyond our understanding, way beyond our understanding. But it's like way beyond our understanding. So yeah, but like yeah, basically releasing that bad energy is like understandable, because we all need to do it. So I don't think blaming the world is necessarily a bad thing, because I'm like, I want to know and like just go into sometimes how I actually want to live as a person from like day to day. And sometimes like even knowing these things, it can just flick a switch, if you like, in your head, and just like the law of attraction kind of thing, just kind of like help you to sort of think in a slightly different way, more evolved kind of person. So this is what the world looks down on: poverty, meanness, early death, a bad name, bad clothes, no rest and no food. So looking at that in parallel with the sins, so what I noticed was the world values things that promote sin. So sloth, greed, pride, covetousness. And the world looks down on things that can promote good things. And I don't know whether those are stereotypes that have just been accumulated through life, but I think just the rule still applies that the world is always going to just fail you if you don't like go for it with a level mind. Most of us are brought up in an environment, like obviously we're all raised in a certain way to navigate the world in whatever way that means to you. I'm not saying like everyone's just like going to be blind to life, but yeah. So in like religion it says like in the Bible it says like don't follow the world, follow God. But even if you don't follow God, it's like having a route. So let's not get too like loopy-loop. So the world looks down on homelessness. The world looks down on those things. So if you have poverty, I've already said what they look down. If you have poverty, you might be homeless, which might create a whole lot of peace in some people, or not peace necessarily, but like gratitude for what the small things are. If the world, I'm not saying that people should be homeless to have gratitude, but obviously sometimes you do get some people that are just find a lot of, you hear that, don't you, about homeless people, that they just sort of like have this huge appreciation for things like shelter and stuff after they've experienced that. So looking down on meanness, this could be a sign of not wanting to be assertive and protect yourself as a vessel for God. So I don't necessarily think meanness as something the world looks down on is necessarily a good thing. I don't think meanness is always a bad thing, if that makes sense. To not get too complicated, having things like a bad name, bad clothes, no rest, no rich food, like it's all just like promoting covetousness, that you have to have good clothes and good rest and good food. Rest, obviously, peace. It's just saying like you're not evoking envy in other people, you're not trying to strive for covetousness. So they say when people see things as beautiful, ugliness is created. When people see things as good, evil is created, because this is really just creating judgment and covetousness. Judgment, saying something's beautiful with your own eyes. God looks on the heart, not the outward appearance. And when people see things as good, they see it as covetousness, because like you're kind of, to be fair, only God says what's good at the end of the day, so who are you to say what's good? That's still judging the world. So basically, we're all made in the images of God. If we are going to be envious, judgmental, covetousness, it's just going to go against our natural nature and not be beautiful at the end of the day. I'm getting very, very... But back to nature, as a second to last little thought, people, like, in nature, you get... Because my brain's even started to hurt, to be fair. You've got, like, chameleons that mimic like, a certain... Like, they'll blend to their environment. And like snakes can be like, this guy was like, snakes can be jealous of the wind because, and like animals can be jealous of each other through natural selection. So if a certain animal has like long legs, obviously jealousy can be a level of like envying something. So it can go with, you know, like reproduction, and like you might like one gene can be compatible with, like, you know, you can animals, like, you know, things can be attracted to each other in order to want to like reproduce, obviously, but then also you get envy and like jealousy in animals. And even like through dogs, if you have two dogs and you're giving one of them attention and one of them not, the other one's going to get jealous and try and get the attention. But it's because like it's like a survival technique, like natural selection, and we have it as humans as well because we're also animals. I think the world like obviously always tries to get their head around like, you know, what can make the world better, and the world changes all the time. But at the end of the day, we are human beings, and I always like to like come back to like, it's always like you just come back to stuff all the time, but sometimes like the world can just move, especially just, yeah, we're all going to be jealous because we're all like mammals at the end of the day. But it's like and people and animals do it as well. We all change ourselves to be part of a tribe. Again, it goes back to natural selection. But at the end of the day, I believe that everything works itself out in the end, as to not ramble for too long. But one last thought, which is by Lao Tzu Chao Ti Ching Tu. Try and say that 12 times without being brain dead. So that was quite hard. But yeah, apparently this is just a nice little, it's almost poetic the way it says it. Being and non-being produce each other. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short define each other, high and low oppose each other, and fore and aft follow each other. Which I thought was a nice relationship, weirdly enough, thought. Because I don't want to explain that too hard. If you want to skip back and hear what I said, you'll understand what I mean. But like, difficult and easy complement each other. Sometimes if someone's, you know what I mean, in personality type, low and high oppose each other. If someone's really, really up on their ass, you know, up their ass, someone else is really, really like overly humble, that might not go together very well. Fore and aft follow each other, if you can both have your own steps or step on each other. You know, long and short define each other. you know, that might not go well together. Being and non-being produce each other, we all learn things through doing things that we don't know. So that's just a bit of a rules of life kind of video. I found it really interesting to watch this video. I hope I've communicated it okay. But yeah, just a little like thing. I'm not going to be preaching at the camera so much. It will seem like that, but I do want it to be more like slightly different vibe. But yeah, thank you for listening. Bye.